Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. This is Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, your number one African Caribbean online radio. It's another Saturday, and if it's a Saturday, we know what it is when it comes to the program. Today is Africa. My name is Tio Yabuachi, TYB, as so many people call me. Today we are going to have a very wonderful experience with respect to the fact that we have a very great guest. As we do every Saturday, we come in here to discuss topics of great relevance and importance where Africa is concerned. Africa is dear in our hearts, deep. There is no doubt about it. And as we traverse the political as well as historical pathways, most of the time we neglect where we come from. And this is a time where Africans should be proud of themselves or of ourselves for the achievements and the non-achievement that we've done so far, despite the fact that we've been bombarded over the years after the so-called independence that were granted to us. We've been going through a lot, and I think as an optimist, I know Africa is in a better place right now. Oh, there's no doubt about it. We have a special guest, and let me give you a brief bio about this special guest. And he's no other than Dr. GNAKA LAGOKE, and he holds a PhD in public policy and development from Howard University. He is currently an associate professor in history, world, African and African American and Pan-Africana studies at Lincoln University in the United States. He's a specialist in African and global geopolitics, African and international development. His research interests include comparative politics, international justice, Pan-Africanism, the Ubuntu philosophy, the question of reparation, and the Ubuntu corporate social responsibility. He promotes new dispensation of Africanism, of Pan-Africanism, who stands upon the Ubuntu philosophy. Dr. GNAKA LAGOKE is the chairman of the scientific committee of the 9th Pan-African Congress. As a political analyst, he has appeared on several international news outlets as Deutsche Welle, BBC, RFI, Voice of America, Russia Today, Hispan TV, Australian Broadcast Corporation, Democracy Now!, Al Jazeera, CCTV, TVC News, Sputnik Radio, one of my best radio stations out there, Africa Media, For You Media, and Ivoire TV. Folks, Dr. GNAKA LAGOKE, yes. Thank you, Doc, for accepting to be with us today. It's a great pleasure to be with you. As a person from Africa, from Ghana to be specific, and your background from the Ivory Coast, we are brothers. And this is just something that I just wanted to put in. But before we continue with the conversation that we are going to be having today, Doc, from where I sit, my first question to you would be for you to give us a brief history about Pan-Africanism, because a lot of people just use the word loosely without knowing what it is all about. As a matter of fact, last week we had Dr. Achaba Adesibo from Ghana, who came in and also gave us an insight with respect to Pan-Africanism. But from where I sit, I'm going to be building a case with respect to Pan-Africanism. So from where I sit, what is Pan-Africanism? As a brief historical thing about it. The floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Theo, for the opportunity. And I want to thank Janice, who played a wonderful role of a producer. And I would like to thank my friend Brenda Foreman, who connected me to you guys. And it's a pleasure. And then anytime I am given the privilege and the opportunity to speak about Pan-Africanism, I seize it because that is my calling and that is my mission, and because I have a specific vision about Pan-Africanism. So before I talk about my vision, my vision for Pan-Africanism in the 21st century, I'm going to give like a brief history. I'm going to try to see if it is too long. You can stop me.
Oh, we have every time.
Yeah,
When it comes to Africa, we have time.
okay. Yeah. So I have uh, I have the privilege, right? I have the privilege in order to I had the privilege to study Pan-Africanism. So when I'm giving the history of Pan-Africanism, I try to do that in a different way. So this is what I say. The first thing is that Pan-Africanism it is a word, it is a concept, it is an idea, it is an ideology, it is a methodology, it is a public policy, it is a political economy, it is a movement about the unity of Africa and about the unity of Africa and its people at home and abroad, who are aspiring to conquer their sovereignty, their freedoms, so that they can control their resources for the betterment of the African people. So this is how I define Pan-Africanism. Uh, of course, Pan-Africanism permits different spheres: politics, economy, culture, society, spirituality. All those spheres, we've seen the expression and the manifestation of Pan-Africanism. Now, when we talk about the history of Pan-Africanism, I in my articulation of the history of Pan-Africanism, I talk about three precursor movements, four building blocks of four phenomena, of four sets of phenomena. And then when you talk about the evolution of Pan-Africanism, we have 5 of 6 stages. So I'm going to start with what I call the three precursor movements. By the word precursor, we are talking about movements that preceded Pan-Africanism as an articulated movement. We are talking about movement that predated Pan-Africanism as we know it. Many people say that Henry Sylvester Williams from Trinidad was one of the very first, to coin the word Pan-Africanism during the conference that took place in London, 1900. So before that, people were not using the word Pan-Africanism, particularly in the 18th century or in the 18th or the 17th century. So we start with a movement called the Back to Africa movement. Towards the end of the 18th century, since the beginning of the 19th century, many people in the diaspora, I mean in the United States, in the Americas, also in England, they thought about repatriating, the free slaves, getting rid of Black people, and many Black leaders also they wanted somehow to leave the nightmare that the United States represented. This is how one of the very first one was going to be Paul Coffey. He was a businessman, the richest among the Black community, and who he owned a boat called the Traveler, and then he contributed to the immigration of Africans towards Sierra Leone and later on toward Liberia. This is how Sierra Leone, which was a construct of the British Empire, and then Olaudo Equiano, an Igbo former slave, was going to be involved in the repatriation of blacks towards Sierra Leone. Paul Coffey did the same, but later on, Paul Coffey was going to be he was going to put more emphasis on Liberia, which was going to be the construct of the American Colonization Society. And then many black leaders were going to be involved. Many were also going to oppose the Back to Africa movement, which, by the way, became very popular in the 20th century thanks to Marcus Garvey. But before Marcus Garvey, in the 19th century, we had Paul Coffey, we have Martin Delany, we have Edward Blyden, who coined the word Africa, the African personality. Martin Delany coined the phrase Africa for the Africans. And then Alexander Cromwell, Henry McTurner were some of the people who supported the Back to Africa movement. Those who opposed it, Richard Allen, the founder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, David Walker, who wrote the book, David Walker's Appeal, Frederick Douglass was, so these are the people who opposed the movement. Somehow, that movement, the Back to Africa movement, was going to mobilize generations over 100 years of Black Americans, of people, Blacks like in the Americas. That is the Back to Africa movement. The second one is Ethiopianism. In the word Ethiopianism, we have the word Ethiopia. Ethiopianism is a political, cultural movement about the creation of Black-owned churches, Black independent churches, inspired by the existence and the creation of independent churches in the Americas, particularly the African Methodist Episcopal Church that I spoke about, created by Richard Allen and some other leaders. So that movement was about the glory of Africa. The movement was about the regeneration, spiritual and cultural regeneration of Africa, and then leaders like Alexander Cromwell, leaders that Henry McTurner, who, by the way, visited many territories in Africa, when he went to South Africa, there were, and Edward Blyden, they were the greatest advocates of that cultural movement, political cultural movement called Ethiopianism, which also was an expression of the proto-nationalism before the era of nationalism that we knew when people were fighting against colonialism. So the biblical reference of Ethiopianism is Psalm 68, verse 31 in the Bible, when they said that Ethiopia was going to stretch its hands, and then many people were going to see that Ethiopia, it was seen as the promised land of the people of African descent. The third one is Pan-Negroism, coined by W.B. Du Bois in a document that he wrote called The Conservation of Races in 1898. It was about the historical responsibility of Blacks and Black Americans to create agencies that they can control for the redemption of Black Americans individually and collectively, and for all the people of related to Africa. These were the three precursor movements. Now the four building blocks, I'm going to go a little bit faster for that. The four building blocks, or the four sets of phenomena, are the theories of the racial theories that the Europeans used in order to justify slavery and colonialism and many other systems like apartheid. We have social Darwinism. We have the white man burden. And then all the theory that they constructed in order to justify the superiority of white people, in order to consolidate white supremacy. That is the first set of phenomena. The second one is a set of revolutions, and there were many of them. We begin with the American Revolution, 1776, 1783. And then later on, we have the French Revolution of 1789. And after the French Revolution, we have the Haitian Revolution, which was an offshoot of the French Revolution, 1791 to 1804. And then we had the Industrial Revolution, which was going somehow to lead the European to go and take control of the resources of Africa and many other people in the world. And the Industrial Revolution led to the rise of some ideologies, such as communism/socialism, such as feminism, such as conservatism, and such as nationalism. And I'm going to talk about that in a few. And now the third one, we're going to be the system of the nationalism, like the set of nationalism. The set of nationalism, when we were going to school, we heard that the rise of nationalisms led to the First War, World War One. So we were studying that. But unfortunately, because our teachers were teaching us from the Eurocentric perspective, they never linked the rise of nationalism in Europe to Pan-Negroism or to Pan-Africanism. And this is what I'm going to do now. And then, so Europe, in the age of the Industrial Revolution, we saw the rise of nationalisms. We talk quickly and briefly about the Italian unification, and we talk about Pan-Germanism, and I'm going to put emphasis on Pan-Slavism, which was the project led by Serbia, supported by Russia, to create a Pan-Slavic kingdom. And then when, after the war that Russia had against the Ottoman Empire, and Bosnia and Herzegovina were freed after the war, and when they were hoping to be associated with Serbia in order to create the Pan-Slavic kingdom, under the pressure of France and England and some other territories, Bosnia and Herzegovina were placed under the leadership of the newly founded Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was created in 1867. This is how the Austro-Hungarian Empire took control of those two territories, and this is how they frustrated. The Pan-Slavic kingdom mission. And this was going to lead the Serbian to create an underground group in order to kill the Archduke Francis Ferdinand and his fiancée Sofia. It was in the context of Pan-Slavism, Pan-Germanism, the unity of Italy, of the unification of the United States, because it was built upon the principle of unity, that those who preceded us started talking about Pan-Negroism, and then later on they spoke about Pan-Africanism. So I'm going to go quickly. I leave the fourth phenomena, and now I'm going to talk about the evolution of Pan-Africanism. So when the word Pan-Africanism was coined officially at the beginning of the 20th century, what I'm going to talk about now is that a leader comes, organizes his meeting, gives a particular meaning or particular name to the meeting, and takes the movement to a higher level. So the naming Henry Sylvester Williams at the conference in 1900, W. Du Bois that I was talking about, he was seen as the one who organized the 5 Pan-African Congresses. He talked about Pan-African Congresses. And then Henry Sylvester Williams spoke about Pan-African Conference. W. Du Bois was the greatest theoretician of the Pan-African movement. And then Marcus Garvey, who was going to organize the Back to Africa movement in the 20th century, and who created the Universal Negro Improvement Association, was going to take the Pan-African movement to the level of the masses. He had hundreds of chapters across the globe, even in Liberia that he did not visit, in Sierra Leone, in Lagos, and even in Senegal. And now we see Kwame Nkrumah, who went to school here at Lincoln University, and who was at the Manchester Congress in 1945, who went back to Ghana, joined the struggle, and then who became the leader of independent Ghana. And then with him, Pan-Africanism was returning home, and then Kwame Nkrumah took now the Pan-African movement to the level of the state. Now with Nkrumah, a state, like in Africa, was claiming Pan-Africanism as the founding ideology of everything that he was doing. Now, Kwame Nkrumah was going to come with like a new naming for the Pan-African movement he was putting together. Garvey was talking about conventions. Nkrumah spoke about the All African People Conferences. And he started in Ghana, in December 1958. And when the African leaders were fighting over ideologies, methodologies, and processes, they came together in Addis Ababa 1963, and then they created the organization of the Organization of Africa of the African Unity. This is how Pan-Africanism now was going to reach the level of what of the continent. Dr. King was at the swearing ceremony of Kwame Nkrumah in 1957. And when he came back to the United States, he gave a sermon called The Birth of a New Nation, in which he was advocating Pan-Africanism and asking Black Americans to go and help build Ghana. Malcolm X, after he left the Nation of Islam, and he created a short-lived organization called the Fruit of Islam. Malcolm X visited many countries in Africa, and Malcolm X, when he came back, he created the organization of the Afro-American Unity in order to emulate the organization of the African Unity. This is how, with the founding of that organization, we can say Malcolm X gave the organic understanding of the involvement of the diaspora in the conversation about Pan-Africanism. So when people decided to create the sixth region as the region of the diaspora, credit has to be given to many Black Americans, particularly Malcolm X. So this is the history of Pan-Africanism. And then, of course, singers like Bob Marley, who sang Zimbabwe and Africa Unite, in order to emulate the book written by Kwame Nkrumah, Africa Must Unite. And then in the field of fashion, arts, and many other spheres, Africans are expressing a sense of identity, a sense of belonging, and then many other things. One thing I will say before I ask your second question is that there were critical issues in the history of Pan-Africanism sometimes that people do not look at. We talk about the question of race. Not to go too far, the question of race and the question of ideology. I want to talk about those two because there are several critical issues, those two. Pan-Africanism in the beginning, it was about Black nationalism in the beginning. But when Kwame Nkrumah organized the conference of the independent state of Africa in April, and when the All African People's Conference was organized in December 1958, the notion of Pan-Africanism now evolved, expanded, and it was no longer about Black nationalism. It became multiracial. That is one thing people need to know. The notion of African personality that Edward Bladen used, that Kwame Nkrumah embraced, it was no longer related to exclusively Black people. It was about the multiracial dimension of Africa. The second element about the ideology is that during the struggle for the decolonization of Africa, communism / socialism those two ideologies were very important, embraced by many leaders like in the world, particularly in Africa. Kwame Nkrumah himself wanted to build the United States of Africa based on the socialist ideology. Julius Nyerere spoke about African socialism that he called JAMA. And so there were all those the ideology about socialism and communism. But later on, we saw that some other leaders were claiming capitalism. This somehow Pan-Africanism was going to be in the crossfire of the doctrinal debate between capitalism and then socialism / communism. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You've taken us through a real history. And I thank you for that. How do you see Pan-Africanism today?
So one of the things when I talk about Pan-Africanism, years ago when I was, when we started, we launched my friends and I, we launched a Pan-African platform called the Revival of Pan-Africans Forum in the United States in Washington, D.C. And then we organized a Thomas Sankara annual conference since 2012. When we were doing that, many people thought that, we were wasting our time, that Pan-Africanism was dead, There's no need to talk about Pan-Africanism. And then when Barack Obama became the president of the United States, it was a great moment of pride, a great moment of Pan-Africanism, because the Ashanti in Ghana, and then the Ashanti, and then the people from the northern part of Ghana, the many other ethnic group in Ghana that are fighting over tribalism and ethnicity. The Igbos and the Yorubas and the Hausas in Nigeria, the Tutsis and the Hutus in Rwanda and Burundi, the Betes and the Baules and the Betes in Ivory Coast. Though those respective groups fighting for around ethnicity, all of them felt a sense of pride because Barack Obama gave a sense of pride with his political success. Of course, it served the interests of Imperial America. This is not what I'm talking about. But so we knew that sooner or later, Pan-Africanism was going to be back. When I was studying Pan-Africanism, what I discovered is that it's a movement that experiences some great moments of peaks, and the movement goes into hibernation. And then some historical factors always come in order to give like a new boost, to the Pan-African movement. It has always been like that. As I was talking about the Manchester Congress of 1945, after the 1927 Congress, which was held in New York, many people thought that Pan-Africanism was dead. And then when Ethiopia that I was talking about, which is in the heart and in the minds of many, which is in the minds of nationalists, when Ethiopia was invaded in 1935 by Italy, in order to avenge for the two losses, because Ethiopia defeated Italy two times in the 19th century, 1887 and 1896. So Mussolini, in the age of the rise of fascism, wanted someone to avenge, and Mussolini went. When he invaded Ethiopia, there was an outcry of people who were fighting for Pan-Africanism. This is how Pan-Africanism was going to be given a new momentum. That's why in the 1945 Manchester Congress, the theme was about the decolonization of Africa. Now today, listen, when we see what is happening on the continent of Africa, it is a beautiful movement. Niger, Burkina Faso, and then Mali rising to the occasion.
Guinea.
Fighting. No, Guinea. I don't talk too much about Guinea. Based on the element that I have, I will not put Guinea in the group of those three. I will not. I'm not going to attack the leader, but we want to see more than what we've seen so far. So I will not talk about him.
Okay.
So when we see those three countries denouncing French neocolonialism, expelling the French military bases, and asking for French to renegotiate the contract that the French government signed with the former leaders of those respective countries, Pan-Africanism is on the rise. When we see Malema from South Africa launching the trend of economic freedom, and he calls his political party economic freedom fighters.
Yes.
And then we see that in Namibia, in Malawi, in Ghana, in several places, people are emulating the EFF created by Malema. When we see the campaign against the CFA franc launched by a youngster called Kemi Seba, and then people in African countries, the Francophone African countries, organized, mobilized, and they opposed the French currency, to the point that the French government decided that they were going to change the name of the currency to ECO, which, by the way, was the name of the currency African policymakers were working on for 35 years. So when you see all those elements, also when we see the creation of the African ADDI created by Ambassador Arikana,
yes,
and then she's connecting Africans and people of the African diaspora together around self-sufficiency and self-reliance. And then as she's engaging and encouraging them to go to Africa and invest, when we see all those elements, when we see African being so proud now that when we organized the Africa Cup of Nations, we saw the celebration of the identity of Africa and that sense of oneness. There are so many examples. Pan-Africanism is back. When we see those African leaders who, there was a time we're not even talking about Pan-Africanism. Now, even if it is for their self-glorification, now we see, for instance, that my president, Alassane Dramane Ouattara from Ivory Coast, who never claimed Pan-Africanism, and then who came to power the way we know it, using violence in order to come to power, and using violence to consolidate his power, talking about Ivory Coast being the microcosms of the United States of Africa. When we see that Mr. Ouattara is going to be the champion of the second decade, listen to this, the second decade of the Agenda 2063, which was launched, by the way, by South Africa. And when we see that Togo, which is not known as a traditional Pan-African nation, organizing the 9th Pan-African Congress, when we see that William Ruto in Kenya, organizing a big conference about climate justice, the leaders of the African Union, even if some of them may not be sincere, but when we see that the Pan-African parlance or the Pan-African narrative is becoming more popular. From the palaces to the streets, from the secular places to the sacred places, Pan-Africanism is becoming the most cherished like a concept on the continent of Africa and in the diaspora, and we are grateful to the divine.
Yes, folks, you are listening to the program Today's Africa, coming to you from Love the Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, your #1 African Caribbean online radio. We are here to precisely do what we are doing because you know what? We have to tell our stories. And if we don't tell our stories and we allow people to tell our stories for us, it becomes their story. It becomes his story, her story, but not ours. But today we have the pleasure of having Dr. GNANA LAGOKE from the Ivory Coast, my brother from, you know what, Africa. We are one and the same. And we are being taken through a series of historical facts and what awaits us as Africans. Doc, my next question would be, let's look at ECOWAS. ECOWAS was formed on May the 28th, 1975. And as we see right now, I see a path towards when a head of state is doing something wrong, ECOWAS as a group do not do anything. They rather would come in when there's a change of government, because like you know, you and I know, my mother always said that if you hear a frog burp at night or in a river, it means it's taking a lot. So it wants to release gases. That's why we hear frogs burping at night or in the nights. From where I sit, what I can see is that the main purpose of bringing West African states together was for economic, to create an economic community, to trade among ourselves and do things that will benefit us. But over the years, we've seen a lot of things, especially France has been a thorn in the flesh of Africans, especially Burkina Faso, Mali, you know, Niger. We don't want to go into Guinea, like you said. ECOWAS is in a crisis right now. Do you think, from where you sit, that the action taken by Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali are in the right direction? Because I'm saying this to say that in Senegal right now, lots of people are losing their lives, demonstrating against an entrenchment of President Macky Sall wanting to go again. This ECOWAS is not looking at it, but when there's a change in government, then they come out with sanctions and left, right, and center. But whilst it's going on, they don't see anything wrong with it. So from where you sit right now, do you think Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso have taken the right course to remove themselves from ECOWAS because it doesn't benefit anybody?
Yeah, so I have mixed feelings, to be honest with you, and I'm going to say it.
Okay.
I have seen several people who were very happy that that those three countries left ECOWAS. Yes, ECOWAS is a defunct organization. It is a useless organization. You know what? Let's leave ECOWAS. So this is what they say. And then there are some other people who say, no, they should not have left ECOWAS. For me, to be honest with you, I think that maybe they wanted to use that as a shocker, right? They wanted to use that as a shocker. If it is that, I can understand. But I heard the president of Burkina Faso saying that, you know what, we left for good. We're not going back to ECOWAS. For me, as an advocate of Pan-Africanism, I think that people should give themselves the right to have like a minimal conversation, even though they may be at odds with each other. This is how I see it. So for me, suspending the membership for me could have been the right thing to do. Suspending the participation or the membership.
Not without the sanctions.
What's that?
Not without the sanctions.
No, they can have, even with the sanction, you suspend your participation. Right. Okay. You suspend. We are now, from now on, we are not going to be member of ECOWAS until, whatever situation is going on is resolved. But when you say that you withdraw like that, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult the moment when people are going to come back together. I don't like to talk too much about Houphouët-Boigny like that, but I'm going to talk about Houphouët-Boigny, our first president. And this is also my policy. Houphouët-Boigny said that when you are sitting, you are on a seat, right? Like the traditional seat that we call tabouret. So you are sitting there and somebody is sitting next to you. If you don't want the person to be next to you, you push toward the person. And then when there is no more space, the person stand up and the person can go like a move away. And then if you need the same person, then you push back and then you leave the space for the person to sit down. This is how I see. Because if you want to do like a breakup like that, it is going to be a little bit difficult. I'm not even going to talk about the fact that if it is effective, it means that, for instance, that the citizens of Ivory Coast, when they go to Mali, they will need a visa. Why it has to be like that? People have to understand that it is not about the leaders that are going after them. It is about the genuine aspiration of Africans who want to be together within the ECOWAS and within the African Union. Mm-hmm. And that's my position. Or one thing, even though I read yesterday that according, if the information is correct, according to the president of the African Development Bank, Niger is one of the fast-growing economy in Africa. Yes. Yeah, so you read that too. So yes. I saw that. So for me, these are the things that they should be doing. If, for instance, they have a nuclear plant there to provide electricity to Niger, to Burkina Faso, or to Mali, these are the things that I wanted to see instead of saying, you know what, we live in ECOWAS. You understand? That is my position. But I understand the message. But for me, so a suspension of membership would have been the right thing to do. That's my position as a Pan-Africanist who is tired of seeing splinters, of breakups, and then different other groups that are divided, by several other reasons, for several other reasons.
But Doc, if you come to look at it, it seems they say that the African proverb, they say that if you pull in a rope and it's not coming, it means something is holding it up. The thing is that there are sanctions in place. The same brush is not being used in terms of Senegal, right? I understand the fact that, you know what, we should come together and do stuff. But then, if you come to look at it, there are some vestiges of colonialism people have in place there to sort of satisfy the needs of their colonial masters, just like you indicated rightly. They are there. But then, are they serving the interests of Africa? Young Ibrahim Traore has brought hope. The thing is that even yesterday I read that these three countries are forming a confederation.
Yeah, no, I see. I understand. My point is that I understand that. You know, I don't want to be, you know, because usually I'm hopeful, and I always want to see things, you know, from with positive lenses.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
yeah, so one of the things I've been telling people, we should not be so enthusiastic about what they're doing. It is marvelous. It is great. But they are not the first ones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? They are not the first ones to do that. Nkrumah, who is the greatest example, did more than that.
Yes.
Nkrumah, because guess what? In Mali, Burkina, and Niger, they're not even organizing Pan-African gatherings for people to come together and think about their respective revolutions.
Mm-hmm.
When Nkrumah was there, he brought together scientists, intellectuals from all over the world. At the conference that he organized in December 1962. In 1961, the Freedom Fighters. 1958, so the All African People's Conference. So Nkrumah was like, he was here. None of them is even closer to Kwame Nkrumah. But people have to learn from the past. My feeling is that what they're doing is fine on the emotional side, on the political side, it is great, but it is far from being sufficient. And then we are there, you know, to try and help those who want to be helped. Is Modibo Keita from Mali, for
Yeah.
instance,
Mm-hmm.
that people are not even claiming in Mali the way they should. Because Assimi Goita, all of us, we respect the work that he's doing, but he's not the first to expel the French. Modibo Keita did that before him.
Yes.
And then what happened to Modibo Keita? 1968, you know, I think that's the year they took him out of power by somebody who certainly was supported by the French. You see, so we know. My point is that they're trying. We appreciate what they're doing. It is not enough. It is great. It can be better, and we should not be so enthusiastic. It's a great battle, a great war, and there are people that Kwame Nkrumah called the unpatriotic sons of Africa, the unpatriotic sons and daughters of Africa. They are there plotting every day in order to come and reverse the course of history. So now, what I'm saying is that uh, uh, leaving ECOWAS does not resolve any issue. Because if somebody wants to come and overthrow you, you don't have to be a member of ECOWAS for the government, for the country to come and overthrow you. Do you understand? Yeah, it does not resolve any issue. Leaving ECOWAS does not give you access to the money that the French blocked for those respective countries. Leaving ECOWAS, it is not just so. They need to do many more than that. And then we have some ideas. We never met them. They're doing great things that we heard about. But I think that it goes beyond. Talk about Senegal. Of course, we are witnessing or living in the age of double standards. This is what the Europeans do. Your people are. This is when I teach my history classes. This is what I tell my students if they want to understand history easily. This is what I talk about. The three G's, the reason why the Europeans went after Africa and then other territories are God, glory, and gold. And then the three M's that they use to go and take over the means, the merchants, the missionaries, and the military. And then the three C's or the four C's: colonialism, civilization, Christianization, and so another C. And now what I call the three or the four, the P's, which is about privileges, properties, and possession that they give to those who sat with them against the one that they want to colonize. So, my brother, this is started since the 15th century. Nothing is new. So what Macky Sall is doing, when the Europeans are supporting Macky Sall, they did that for 500 years, not only in Africa, but all over the world. So my point is that when we know that, yes, we can denounce ECOWAS because of that, but people have to be they have to be more strategic, and then for us, in order to go and do what we have to do. So I'm not going to whine and complain. Look at the French, what they're doing with Macky Sall. No, this is the law. That is the law of the world. That's the law of history. The might is what? Right. It is only then when you become strong enough that you can prevent other people, to control or to subdue you, then you can survive in this world.
Yeah, in the quest of doing that, to the outsider, that person sitting somewhere, it's like you are in the home and somebody is benefiting. The question that we have to ask ourselves is that are the people benefiting? Because you know what, the three countries. Let's take Burkina Faso. Just Burkina Faso. What mineral resources do they have? They've got quite a lot. If you go to Niger, same thing. They've got. But then, if you go to see how the country has been developed or underdeveloped or no development at all, despite all the wealth. Because what bothers me is that to read that, Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world, or that country in Africa is the poorest country in the world. But no, it is poor because something is not given. We are not being treated on an equal footing. Imagine buying a pound of, a kilo of, I think uranium, 88 cents per kilo. And then on the world market, I may be wrong, I stand to be corrected. Then
no, it's not about that. Your facts are okay. It's not about that. I was thinking about that thing. Go ahead.
And then for us to come out and see that after all, it's over $200 or over $200 per the same kilo for the same thing. So don't you think the people of Niger, the people of Mali, the people of Ghana, the people of Chad, the people of Central Africa, if they see things like this, don't you think they have to be angry?
Yes,
to change the status quo.
Yeah, people, listen, my brother. Before what we see, I used to tell people that Africans were not revolted enough. We are not revolted enough. I'm not, when I talk about that, I'm not saying that we should go and kill the Europeans. Yeah. We cannot win a military war with those people, unless God decided otherwise. This is not what I'm talking about. But people are not revolted enough. You see, we've been sleeping. You see, maybe somebody like you, people I know, we've been talking about the same thing. But there was a time where people were not paying attention. Now, because of so many factors, people are waking up. But we are not revolted enough.
I get you.
Yeah, so we are not revolted enough. And many, like you said, many people, are not serious about educating themselves. Today, like I said, people are so excited about what we see. It is great. But we have not seen yet leaders of the caliber of Kwame Nkrumah,
definitely,
of Patrice Lumumba, of Amilcar Cabral, of Julius Nyerere, of Jomo Kenyatta, of Sékou Touré, Modibo Keïta, of Nelson Mandela. We have not seen that yet. But for us to be able to see that type of caliber, people needed to be revolted enough. I'm going to give just an example. What you saw in Ivory Coast during the Africa Cup of Nations.
Yeah.
Imagine because these are things I write about. We imagine people were praying like in the mosque. People were praying like in the church. People went to the sacred forest to invoke, the ancestors. People were desiring the aspiration of a nation to conquer that Africa Cup of Nations because it became a matter of national security and a matter of national pride. Listen, my brother, if we devote the same energy, we're going to take back our resources. But we don't do that for our resources. So that's my position. So people need, it's like, okay, now that we have expelled the French, okay, but people need to be driven also by a sense of what? Social justice.
Yes.
It's not about a caste coming to power or a tribe coming to power that is going to replace the European in order to exploit other Africans. It's not what we're talking about. So we are not revolted enough. So yes, what is happening in Niger, Burkina, and Mali seem to be great. It can be greater. It can be massive. It can be consequential. And this is what we want to do. That level of consequentiality, I've not seen it. I've not seen that yet in what I've been observing. And this is what I'm talking about. For instance, people can decide to give lectures, courses about Pan-Africanism in Niger, Mali, and Burkina. People, we see the countries allowing the people to learn about Modibo Keita, which they're not doing, to go and learn about Amilcar Cabral, which they're not doing, learn about Kwame Nkrumah, which they're not doing. When we talk about the Caribbeans and Bertrand Aristide in Haiti, when we learn about the Haitian Revolution, when we learn about all those revolutions, or we learn about the system that the Europeans put into place.
Let me indulge you in this. Why do you think
Yes.
all that you are itemizing are not being done?
I think that I wanted to accuse the Africans on this, but I think I will start with the Europeans. Because from 1958 to 1968, this is what I say. Sometimes when you talk like that, people don't want to hear that. Because look at today, we talk about Ibrahim Traoré, young man, great leader. He had a mission, a vision for his country. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Your image froze a second here.
Yeah.
Also, when we saw Ibrahim Traoré, or we see Assimi Goïta, or we see Chani in Niger, what they're doing. As you know how the European function, they're trying to eliminate them politically or physically. So from 1958 to 1968, many leaders of the global African world were decimated or eliminated by the European. People who had a vision for Africa and the African people. Sekou Touré was going to be ostracized after he left the French Federation. And then Boganda from the Central African Republic was going to be assassinated. Niombe and Félix Moumié from Cameroon, who were fighting for the independence of Cameroon, the unity of Cameroon, were going to be eliminated and assassinated. Patrice Lumumba, the leader of Democratic Congo, was going to be assassinated. Sylvanus Olympio was going to be assassinated in 1963. Kwame Nkrumah, Nelson Mandela was going to be sent to prison with his colleagues in 1964. 1965, February 21st, Malcolm X was going to be assassinated. In 1966, Kwame Nkrumah on February 24th was going to be overthrown. The greatest champion of Pan-Africanism was going to be overthrown. In 1968, the apostle of peace, the icon of the civil rights movement in the United States, Dr. King, was going to be assassinated on April 4th, 1968. When, and there are many more, when in 10 years, a race loses the brightest of his children, then you can imagine that this is going to have a negative impact on the welfare and the fate of that race. And then, of course, many people they lost hope. Now, this is on the side of Africans. They lost hope, and then they became psychotic. One day I went when I was organizing like a seminar when Obama became president. Many of those Africans who came, they were telling me, Nyaka, we want to support you. Please use another word. Don't use the word Pan-Africanism, because white people will come after you. So people were so traumatized that many did not even want to use the word Pan-Africanism. We did it. We believed that Pan-Africanism was going to be back, and Pan-Africanism is back. So the work that you are doing, The work that many are doing, we need to continue, and we need to reduce disunity in our midst. We need to be more strategic, and we need to be more serious. This is how we can have a bigger impact on the consciousness of the African people. If we do that, we can produce greater impact than what we've seen so far in Africa with the rise, with the new disposition of Pan-Africanism that we are witnessing.
I like what you said. It's optimism. I'm an optimist because there's nothing like Kwame Nkrumah said. Africa is not poor, but Africans are poor. And I think with the right leadership, because you know what, it bothers me when I read or I see that young Africans are crossing the desert to go and seek, you know what, greener pastures elsewhere, whereas the greener pastures are all at the place where they reside. But I think it's because of bad policies, leadership crisis that we have in Africa. That is what is causing this. From where we sit, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so one thing I want to say, I know bad leadership, all of us, we denounce that. But, you know, I usually don't like to talk about myself. But what I've been doing with friends and peers, it is the expression of my personal revolt. As you know, I'm from the Ivory Coast. Mm-hmm. Who talks about Pan-Africanism in Ivory Coast?
That's right.
But you see, but yeah. When I analyzed the history of Africa, I said, you know what? When I discovered that concept when I was going to school, when I was in college, I said, no, this is supposed to be my calling. And then I did it. I studied it. I'm still learning it. And then for me to be here, or for me to be interviewed by all those media, it's not so much that I am brilliant. It is because I have been consistent in the expression of my personal revolt. One of the poems that I like to recite, as you were talking about leadership, is that the responsibility is not so much on the leaders. The responsibility has to be on the regular people. When life descends into the pit, I must become my own candle, burning myself willingly to turn the darkness around me. If each one of us will do that, we light our candles, and when we light our lights, and then the combination of individual lights will be producing a greater light. When we do that, now the leaders, now we want to be the symbols or the embodiment of darkness. We're going to be what? There will be won over. For me, that is the approach. So each one of us, we have to do something. It's not just about the leaders who are in power and who are manipulated by the Westerners and who are scared because they don't know if they're going to be alive the following day. Julius Nyerere, when he finished his term, they asked him, what is your greatest achievement? And I love the answer he gave. He did not say, yes, I gave hope to the people in Tanzania. He said, my greatest achievement is that we have survived. This is what Jesus said. In the light of what I gave you, what happened to all the leaders, from Nyerere, his greatest achievement is that he had survived.
And on that note, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you.
You want to finish?
Very much. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
If the show is going to finish,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I want to say one more thing, and then before I let you go. So in my study of Pan-Africanism, even though I claim Kwame Nkrumah and then all those people who came before us, we are bringing a new dispensation of Pan-Africanism, and then as we need to claim an endogenous value system as the ideology upon which we can build a new dispensation of Pan-Africanism or a novel articulation of Pan-Africanism. Have discovered that the Ubuntu philosophy, which was promoted by the South African government under the leadership of Nelson Mandela, and then that became the policy of the governance of Thabo Mbeki, should be the ideology around which we can claim our identity. We can work for a cultural revolution of Africa, We can think about a new political system. We can conceive a new economy called the Ubuntu economy. So that Ubuntu philosophy, which is about oneness, interconnectedness, sharing, compassion, consensus, and then is what I am claiming. And then it is how the Unguni people call that in South Africa, but it is spread across the continent of Africa from Cape to Cairo. And then quickly, in Ghana, in the Ashanti language, you guys call that Umpuntu, or the Bono people in Ghana call that Umpuntu.
Mpuntu, yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing that you can see with the Igbo people in Nigeria. They call that Nmamdu, the beauty of life. Thomas Sankara that we were talking about, when Thomas Sankara came to power in Burkina Faso, Upper Volta, when he used the word Burkina, it comes from the same concept that the Mosi people use. It is called over there Burkendi. And then Abantu in Uganda, Hunho in Shona, it is spread in between, out of the 2,000 languages in Africa, you have 600 or 900 languages that are Bantu or Bantoid. This is what we have discovered. This is what we are using. We are encouraging Africans to go and read more about the ideology. You will see. All of us will be claiming what Sheikh Atiop spoke about, the linguistic and cultural unity of Africa, and the linguistic and cultural unity between the ancient Egyptian civilization of Egypt and then the current modern day Africa that we are living in. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, Doc, you said something that resonates really with me. I think all that you have espoused are achievable, but the basic tenet of all of it is that we need education. We need to educate the people. And the fact of the matter is, I was talking last week for the Pan-African. I'm doing this Pan-African series, and it's not. I don't know how long it's going to end. It's going to continue forever, because I think it is the right thing to do. One thing that I found that sort of hurt me, makes me sad, is that in Ghana right now, there is not a single book about Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the Osagyefo Nkrumah, in the university. You get somebody graduating out of the university and you just ask them whether they've read anything or they have any book about Dr. Nkrumah. No, nada. There's nothing like that.
Theo, let me say one thing, if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Yes, it is good to denounce the Ghanaian government. All of us, I will join you to denounce them. Like I said, we are not revolted enough.
Yes, I get you.
If people stop people, if Nana Akufo-Addo wanted to do it, he had 8 years when he was the minister for all the years. If he wanted to do that, he would have done it. Yes. He did not do it.
Yes.
In the United States, I'm going to give you just an example. There's San Francisco State University. In 1967, the students, they revolted. Black American, they say, you know what? We want to study the history, or we want to study the African American experience. And then they launched strikes. This is how people, they understood that they needed to allow the study of the African American experience in the universities in the United States. And then also in the world. So my point is that if people are there just complaining, no one is studying the book of Kwame Nkrumah, oh yes, Nana Akufo-Addo is not going to do it, the NPP is not going to do it, and then even when Mahatma Dramani, who claimed to be closer to Pan-Africanism, was there, he did not do it.
Yes.
But people have to take to the streets, or they have to organize and show that they mean business. If they don't do that, it is not going to happen. Right? One last thing about that is that I don't know. There was I think it's an American president, or I don't know. People went to see the leader, say, you know what, we want this, we want this to happen. The president say, okay, I hear you, I share your concern, but make me do it. So the African people, they have to do things that they want to see.
That's right. I agree with you, and thank you. I cannot thank you enough. Midasi, like in Ghana, we say Midasi. Thank you,
you very
Dr.
much. Thank you, my
LAGOKE.
brother. Thank you.
I hope this is not a hello. It's not a hello and a goodbye.
No,
I hope you come back again, because you've taken us through the history and all this. You've shared your ideas and concepts, which I align. I'm an Nkrumahist, unapologetically an Nkrumahist. I'm a student of Nkrumah. I love what Dr. Nkrumah stood for. And I think it's best that we pick up the mantle, we take the touch, we educate, we re-educate ourselves, we reorientate ourselves as we move forward as a people. There's nothing wrong with Africa. And I think and I know that with God on our side, everything will be great.
Thank you.
What we see is very great. We are in a different world right now. Everything is going so fast that we cannot even understand how fast this thing is going. But then we have to incorporate and it with a sense of African personality, who you are, respecting ourselves, going back to learn our history, because this radio station is dedicated to that. We have so many different programs, history, geography, our traditions, because if we don't do that, nobody's going to do that for us. So we created this platform, and every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we bring special guests like you and others to educate those who need to be educated. Thank you once again. And folks, on behalf of myself and the staff and management of Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, we are saying, take care of yourself, be careful, be good, and we'll see you in 1 week. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.